We agreed to do 50-50. It doesn't matter if you are pregnant, you are a grown woman, and it's only fair.
I know, you're right. I only wanted some strawberries.
The budget for fruit is $15. You'd have to pay for it yourself if you wanted more. It's only fair.
Oh no, we are out of gas. I have no money too. What do I do?
The lights on the gas stove sputtered and died just as the water from my cheap ramen started to bubble. I stared at the blue flame vanishing, feeling a cold knot of dread in my stomach. It wasn't just the stove. The Wi-Fi was off, the Netflix account was on hold, and my bank account balance was exactly $12.44. I looked across the kitchen island at Julian. He was sitting in a $2,000 ergonomic chair, bathed in the glow of 3 high-end monitors, sipping a glass of wine that cost more than my monthly car insurance. He was reviewing his stock portfolio, humming a tune. "Julian," I said, my voice trembling, "the gas is out, and the internet as well." He didn't look up. "Yeah, I noticed. Your half of the utility bill was due on the 15th, Maya. I paid my $150. Since your $150 didn't hit the joint account, the company cut us off. Rules are rules." I looked down at my stomach, a 6-month swell that made it hard to breathe, hard to sleep, and apparently, according to my husband, hard to deserve a warm meal. "I'm carrying your daughter, Julian," I whispered. I had to miss 4 shifts this month just because of the pelvic pain. "You have $4 million in your liquid savings alone." He finally turned, his face a mask of calm, equitable logic. "And you have a partnership with a man who respects you enough to treat you as an equal, Maya. If I pay your way, I'm infantilizing you. We agreed 50-50. Always is about the principle." That was the moment the dream of marrying a self-made millionaire turned into a psychological thriller. When I first met Julian, I thought his obsession with fairness was a breath of fresh air. I had come from a string of relationships with bums who drained my bank account. Julian was different. He was successful, disciplined, and wealthy. "I want a partner, not a dependent," he told me on our 3rd date. I cheered for that. I was a modern woman. I had a great job as a graphic designer. I liked paying for my own steak, but I didn't realize to Julian, 50-50 wasn't a financial arrangement, it was a religion. On our wedding day, he handed me a spreadsheet instead of a sentimental gift. It was a breakdown of the mortgage, the HOA fees, the groceries, and even the depreciation value of the furniture. We lived in the $5 million mansion that he chose, and I was expected to pay half the fair market rent to his holding company. I was so blinded by the diamond on my finger that I didn't see the handcuffs on my wrists. Wait, hold up. If you're enjoying this story, you sure to like and subscribe. Turn on your post notifications so you do not miss any new videos. The real drama started when the 2 blue lines appeared on the stick. We were thrilled, or so I thought. "Since you'll be taking maternity leave," Julian said over breakfast, "I've calculated that your income would drop by 40%. To keep things fair, I'm willing to let you loan the difference from me at a 3% interest rate. That way, our 50-50 contribution to the household doesn't slip." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. He didn't laugh. As the months went by, the equality became a slow-motion car crash. My body was changing. I was exhausted. My freelance clients were dropping off because I couldn't pull all-nighters anymore. Meanwhile, Julian was thriving. He bought a new Porsche. He went on a guy's trip to Vegas that cost $10,000. When he came back, he handed me a receipt for $85. "What's this?" I asked. "The Uber from the airport. Half is $42. You benefit from me being home to help with the house, right?" I was nauseous, but it wasn't morning sickness anymore. It was the realization that I was married to a spreadsheet with a pulse. The most relatable tragedies happen in the aisles of a supermarket. At 7 months pregnant, I had a craving for organic strawberries. They were $9. Julian took them out of the cart. The budget for the fruit this week is $15 total. We already have apples. If you want the strawberries, that's a luxury personal expense. You will need to ring this up separately. I stood there in the middle of Whole Foods, watching my millionaire husband separate my strawberries from his kale. People were staring. I felt small. I felt like a beggar in a designer maternity top. Julian, I'm literally growing your child's bones out of my own calcium. Can you just buy me the strawberries? Maya, don't use the baby to manipulate the finances. It's a slippery slope. I paid for the strawberries with the last of my credit card limits. That night, I ate them in the dark, crying, while the internet stayed off because I still hadn't paid my half of the Wi-Fi. The breaking point didn't happen with a scream, it happened with a phone call. The hospital called to confirm the registration for my delivery. Mrs. Vane, we require a $5,000 deposit for the private suite and the elective epidural package your husband requested. Julian, I called out. The hospital needs the deposits. He walked in, checking his banking app. Okay, I've transferred $2,500 into the joint account. Your turn. I felt the room spin. Julian, I don't have $2,500. I haven't worked in 3 weeks. My doctor puts me on a partial bed rest. You know this. Then you should have budgeted better during the second trimester, he said, genuinely confused by my distress. I can't set a precedent where I pay for the birth. It's our baby, 50-50. If I pay $5,000, I'm doing 100% of the work. Is that what you want? To be a 0% parent? I looked at him. Really looked at him. He wasn't being mean. He truly believed he was the victim of an unfair request. He was a financial psychopath. Fine, I said, my voice dead. I'll figure it out. I didn't call my mom. I didn't call a lawyer. I called Julian's business rival, a man named Sterling, who Julian had cheated out of a land deal 2 years ago using a legal loophole. I knew Julian's 50-50 obsession extended to his business. He kept everything in silos. But because he insisted on me being an equal partner, he had made me a 50% signatory on his primary holding company to save on taxes. He thought I was too tired and too hormonal to ever read the fine print. I met Sterling in the park. I was 8 months pregnant, waddling and fueled by a cold, sharp rage. Julian has a weakness, I told Sterling. He thinks everything can be divided down the middle, including his liability. I showed Sterling the documents Julian had forced me to sign to share the tax burden. Julian had inadvertently given me the power to freeze his liquid assets if I felt the partnership was being mismanaged, and by refusing to pay for the infrastructure of the air, the hospital, the food, the safety, he was technically in breach of our own domestic partnership agreement. I don't want his money, I told Sterling. I want to watch him try to live a 50-50 life when he has zero. The contraction started at 2 a.m. on Tuesday. Julian timed them with a watch. Every 5 minutes, he noted, okay, let's go. But remember the hospital valet is $30. I'll pay the first $15. You... Shut up, Julian, I said. It was the first time I had ever snapped. At the hospital, the receptionist looked at us. The deposit hasn't been paid, Mr. Vane. Julian looked at me expectant. Maya? I pulled out my phone. I didn't open a banking app. I opened a news alert. Vane Holdings frozen amidst internal partnership disputes. Julian's face went pale. He tried to swipe his black Amex. Declined. He tried his backup gold card. Declined. What did you do? He hissed as I groaned through a contraction. I exercised my 50% right as a partner to audit the company, I gasped. All funds are frozen until a third-party mediator who happens to be Sterling's brother finishes the review. It should take about 6 months, the same amount of time I've been starving in your mansion. You ruined us, he yelled. No, I said, grabbing his collar as a nurse brought over a wheelchair. I made us equal. You have no money, I have no money. Now you are going to have to find a way to pay for this birth, Julian. Maybe you can take out a loan. I hear the interest rates are 3%. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl named Sophie. Julian had to call his father, a man he hated, to beg for the hospital money. His 50-50 pride was shattered in front of the entire nursing staff. When we got home, the house was dark, the power was still out. Julian sat on the floor of the nursery, trying to assemble a crib he had bought at a discount because I couldn't afford the high-end one. I'll drop the audit, I said. holding Sophie, but the 50-50 is over. From now on, you pay for everything. My contribution is the fact that I'm not putting you in prison for financial abuse. I've already spoken to the lawyer about post-nuptial duress. Julian looked at me, truly seeing for the first time the power dynamic had flipped. He realized that a 50-50 relationship only works if both people are playing the same game. I wasn't playing anymore, I was winning. The strawberries are in the fridge, he whispered. I bought 5 boxes. Good, I said, walking past him into the master bedroom. You owe me for the gas bill too, with interest.